Welcome to the Love, Purpose, Connection podcast. I am your host, Estelle Bingham, and together we'll be delving into the profound meaning of love, the driving force of purpose, and the beauty of connection that shapes the fabric of our lives. In each episode, I sit down with some of the most inspiring individuals out there to understand the ways love has touched them. David MBE is a multi-platinum selling artist whose career has spanned 25 years. He's the iconic voice behind songs such as 7 Days, Fill Me In, and most recently, SOS. Not just a singer, but an author too, Craig has documented his career through the lens of connection, disconnection, and reconnection in his recent autobiography. He speaks openly about his struggles with mental health and his continued quest for wellness. It's my pleasure and absolute joy to welcome Craig to the Love, Purpose, Connection podcast today. Welcome, Craig. So wonderful to have you in the studio. I'm kind of here to talk about your book, and this is it. What's your vibe? I'm here to talk about really the story that you bring to the world. We were talking about it earlier in such a raw and honest way, that your healing journey, really, your journey.
Yeah, it's funny because it's a continuous, ongoing experience, and it's funny because we were saying just off camera, as I came into this road where we are, it's the same road that I turned into as a 17-year-old kid who was just about to get signed, and met my manager, who was at that point was going to become the record label Wildstar, which is on the same road. Then I was going to end up being managed by him for 25 years, and he's still my manager now. My 21st birthday party was on this road.
Wow!
So it's just like the journey as I hit that corner flooded parts of that I didn't even really take you on in this book, because I was like, whoa. This is how far things have come. Things have changed. What things have stayed the same, and I feel like we're always trying to like unravel parts of our earlier years and understand them a bit better, and then kind of learn from them and try not to repeat the same mistakes, but at the same time also say, you know what, there was some valuable lessons there that really helped, and I should use those. So this book was kind of like a summary of that in story form, because I think people enjoy stories.
We love stories because ultimately it's how we connect, and connection is such a big thing for you, but it's part of our humanity. It reminds us that we're all messy and we're all perfectly imperfect. And it's kind of what we're here for, right? We're here to turn all of those stories into wisdom and keep evolving.
Yeah.
So there's so many pieces to you, and it's, we're going to have to get it all into this, podcast experience.
Cool.
There's the music, which is huge. So just being a fan of music and really what you've brought to that, to so many music lovers around the world, and just, multi-platinum, incredible, all these like UK hits, and just your prolific music career, which is just, it's so impressive. So there's that happening.
Thank you.
And then there's the other part of you, which is, as you say, there's the sort of the story and how inspiring your journey has been. So it's also like, that's an inspiration. It sort of stands alone as an inspiration in itself. When you start the book, you start with, it's really a dark night of the soul, and you go right in, and it's like, wow, here we are. And in my work, I really, people turn up in that moment. They turn up on my doorstep in that moment, not knowing who they are, where they are, or what's actually going on. And it's a deep, dark night of the soul. For you're kind of just about to go on stage, right? Was it Good Morning America?
Yes.
And all of this stuff's happening. So the pressure of that, I mean, just, you bring it to life so perfectly, but it's like, producers and people on things and, all of that stuff. And you've got to get on stage and perform and be Craig David, and you're you're in absolute agony. And that begins this almost like a journey of the inner work, right?
Yeah, it was, it's so funny that when you said about people coming to see you, because it's always like when people need some help and some wisdom and some advice, like they'll find the teacher, they'll find someone to help them through at that point. Up until that point, it's like, okay. But when you learn or you feel something viscerally, then you're looking for the answers. So for me, in that instance, it was everything had sort of played out very much. I knew how my body works. I know how active I am, how I go on stage, how I prepare. So when I was starting to feel nerve pain, which is interesting, it being nerve pain, because when people say something's getting on your nerves,
Yeah.
you sort of look at it from metaphorically as well as literally, and just being like, I felt the tension and I felt pain in my body that I hadn't quite felt the night before I'd gone into the studios. And we were going to perform a song called Magic, which was
quite apt.
Perfect. As I saw, this is where the magic happens as I walked through the door. So I was like, wow. And a song called I Know You, which I'd done with Bastille.
Right.
And there was this big kind of like build up. We're on Good Morning America. This is the one that's going to break the song and this album. And the album was called The Time Is Now, which again was so divinely sort of orchestrated. And outside of we were right on Times Square. So right outside, there's a huge digital billboard with me in all white standing in this sort of clock aperture, and it's saying the time is now. And it was supposed to be this moment, we do the show, walk outside, take the picture, bam, here we are. And it was definitely the time was now. Oh yeah, the time was now as I stepped onto that stage after all the commotion that was going on and feeling some kind of pain that I hadn't felt before, which is interesting when you think you know your body really well.
Yeah.
And you feel something very new and you're like, whoa, I thought I knew how my body works. And I stepped up onto stage and I just felt like it was like 2,000 volts of electricity go through my back and through. And I was like, yo, lights are on though. I'm seeing the red light for action. Whole of America, like listening on in the morning. And I'm like, so I dial in to sing the song. So I lock in and I'm singing the song through grated teeth, but in the most excruciating pain I've ever felt in my life. And it was just really bizarre because I was like an out-of-body experience.
Yeah.
Because I'm looking at everyone around me all smiling and the teeth like white, gleaming, the band vibing, everyone's having a good time. And I'm just like, I don't know what's happening here. Like, I feel like I'm about to fall down on this thing, but I can't. Like, there was some kind of power that came over me that held me up and said, no, we're going to keep you through this. You're going to feel something in your safe space, which is being on stage, that you've never felt before. And you're going to learn in this moment. And I was learning. And then we finished the song. And I knew there was a 5-minute break before we did the song Magic. And we did that song. And then as I walked off the stage, I then went downstairs and there was going to be this photo opportunity outside of this billboard. And I stood outside and my mum, I took the picture I ended up like looking at years later, and I could just see in my eyes, I was just like, I was a broken soul, about to start my dark night of the soul.
Yeah.
And we took that picture, which was supposed to be the most amazing moment, and it ended up being the moment that was, now in hindsight, the most divine, beautiful moment in amongst the pain I was experiencing, because it changed the trajectory of everything. So, and that was the tailspin that then led to me going on a quest to find out, what's this pain? What's the meaning of life? Why is this happening to me? What's going on? Depression. Wow, I didn't know this existed. I'm Mr. Upbeat, Mr. Positive. So it's been an incredible journey. So when I sit here and I'm speaking with you, it's like, and I come down that road where it all began, I'm like, wow, you could have told me this when I came as a 17-year-old, that this was going to be I actually, in some respects, wouldn't have changed it, because I wouldn't be the man I am today. So, yeah.
And I always talk about the idea of, well, what is a lifetime about? And the soul, your soul's arrived here for these learnings, right? You've turned so much into wisdom. And also, you've had this purpose, you've had this drive, and you have manifested despite the kind of the underbelly that would need to transmute and alchemize, which is the joy of the journey.
Totally.
You also just had this mission, which was also music. I want to just bring you back to what you just talked about, and you said, when you know your body, and ask you that question, really, because people come and see me and they're out of body and they don't really know their bodies.
Right.
We're not really embodying. We're kind of in our minds, but not really listening, not really in our heart. Like you're a big heart person. I can feel that. And I think you've been a big heart person your whole life, but it's listening, isn't it? It's listening, not to the head. So you had that powerful mind, that really powerful brain override of like, we've got this, we're doing it. Meanwhile, the body's falling apart.
Absolutely.
And there have been red flags, boom, 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 along the way that you haven't been listening to. So now, this time where you've grown, you've just allowed yourself, so these pauses, and to listen to that. What's my inner voice really saying? What's really good for me? What's right and what isn't right for me? So, I
right.
want to talk about that a little bit, because, we don't often know. We kind of, our bodies don't, we think we know our bodies. We go to the gym and we do this and we do that, but actually we're out of body, right?
Totally. But as you say that, I wanted to ask you, what was your moment of Dark Night of the Soul? Because it would give you, I just want to see like
I had
there's
my
something that hit, right?
Yeah, the Dark Night of the Soul for me. So I always say to people, and I feel like, I without minimizing a Dark Night of the Soul and really holding that with true reverence. A Dark Night of the Soul is the biggest gift you can get in your lifetime, right?
Mm-hmm.
We haven't lived until we've had a Dark Night of the Soul. So it's a breakdown, or is it a breakthrough? And I always say it's a breakthrough.
Right.
And sometimes we have a few Dark Nights of the Soul.
Mm.
I feel like my first Dark Night of the Soul truly was in my early 20s. So that's when I woke up to my childhood experience, just sort of in university time. So woke up to where I was at in relationships with, men, with, what sort of relationships I was calling in, how I felt about myself, and having to really alchemize my experience with my mother, who I grew up with as in a single parent family, and a lot of the ancestral trauma that she'd handed down. So and this is the thing. So we have two things going on at the same time. So my purpose was very strong. So despite the trauma of my childhood, and I'm not saying everyone out there will, it can really take us under. It's great if your soul comes in with a really clear direction. Some people don't get that till later, and it's okay too, right?
Totally.
So, I knew I wanted to go into TV, so I wrote, and actually I'm going to talk about, because you were talking about Touch magazine and
those good
Lose
times.
the Soul.
Right?
And I used to write for those magazines, and actually my first article was with Black Thought from The Roots.
Wow.
And I kind of faked it to make it. I rang the editor of Touch magazine. I said, I've got this exclusive. And he was like, have you written anything before? And I was like, And he said, well, send over your stuff. Of course I hadn't written anything before, but I managed to get the exclusive with Black Thought. Anyway, cut a long story short, that was my first piece. And I loved those days, But I had to, this idea that I could do it.
Yes.
And it's obviously to a bigger extent with you and your music, but it's that thing of despite where we may find ourselves, a little bit later down the line, our sense of purpose is quite strong.
Totally. That's what I appreciate you sharing it, because sometimes there's stories that they either have the emotional charge is by talking about them, you see if you actually have moved completely through them, because emotionally you feel quite neutral and balanced. But then sometimes I can speak, and if you feel that charge, you say, oh, okay, there's something slightly under there that we might need to just address there, which is always, like you said, like stuff that's underneath the rug. It's the pea and the princess. It's that small little thing that's in the shoe that's like, nah, but we can keep running, keep running, which you said about the red flags with my own experience. There were many red flags along the way, but my mind saying we're going over here, body saying we need to rest. We're not listening to the body right now. We keep going. And then that little pea which seems so minuscule, not going to do anything, grinds you right to a halt just at the finish line. And you're like, whoa, that was that bit of grit that was in the shoe. And then you start to recognize, okay, there's the detail, the small things are the things that really make the difference. And addressing those small things, the things that you keep putting aside, pushing to the side, are the things that are going to rear their head up in a way that you don't want to feel. And I love that, like, even when we talk about Dark Night of the Soul, I'm always, when I speak with people, is to try and sort of demystify the phrase Dark Night of the Soul, because that can go over people's heads. They're like, what is this? It's like Lord of the Rings, like Dark Night of the Soul. What are we talking about here? And it's just like ultimately a moment that shakes your whole being and makes you question everything.
Yeah.
And I feel like I'm now understanding that through stories and through you sharing your story, and that it's the language that you give to it, which is going to resonate with certain people. And through that is where they'll lean in. And there's other people who are doing the work that you would say, they may not be talking about meditation. They might be talking about like being heart-centered. They might not know about chakras. They might know metaphysics, anything, dark night. But they're actually, their language is actually embodying the message. And that's beautiful too.
Yeah.
So it's an interesting weaving thing. You must find that there's, especially within spiritual circles, and I've got fascinated when all this happened, because I asked all these questions and I was picking up Eckhart Tolle's Power of Now and Shakti Gawain's Living in the Light and The Course of Miracles, and I was going in on all these books and esoteric messages and metaphysics and just dialing in. I mean, from the time this happened, I was living in Miami. So for me, it was like 1 minute I'm throwing these house parties that sort of became TS5 and the DJ sets that I do, to me literally saying, well, there's no parties going on in the house anymore. I'm sat indoors watching YouTube, hour-long YouTube things on Eckhart Tolle doing a seminar, like, let me understand about the power of now. Let me understand what following your intuition, what is this about? And do it just on the treadmill, running, and even with everything that was going on still, because my body was like, well, you're still in this. It was like, still didn't want to give up the ghost, but wanted to learn and understand what is this all about. And it's funny because you can also embody like all of the wisdom and knowledge through different media and books, but to actually embody it and do it is two different things.
Yeah.
And you must experience that. People come to you like, what should I do, Estelle? What's the vibe? And you give them all the tools. But actually you can also feel that you've become the crutch, because you're like, well, you go now, do that. And they're like, no, but what's the next book you've got though? Because that's going to give me the thing. And I've noticed that, like, it's like, there's sometimes you almost just got to hold space, and it's okay though, too, right? It's like, you can hold space, but it's like, especially when you're a light worker and you want to do the work, you're like, please, can you just run with this now? Because I don't want to, like, how many iterations do you want of the same thing? Like, and that's interesting. I was going to ask you that, like, how do you feel when people come to you and you're giving them, you've got all the tools now. You've come to all of my classes. I'm giving you everything. But yet you're still looking for something still from me.
Well, I'm quite particular about that, actually, and people who work with me, you know, I giggled actually when you said that, because I'm really clear about not getting into spiritual codependency.
Right.
So I really feel that there's a meme that goes around on Instagram. You've probably seen it, but it's, you know, a healer is someone who unlocks the healer within you. And I always say it's about you standing on your own two. It's always about you're standing on your own 2 feet. Like, you've got this.
Yeah.
You know, you come from a place of wholeness. We're just returning we're just remembering. So what I found with my work, because it's not about thinking, it's not about concepts, it's not about knowing everything inside out. It's like musicians, you know, when we see someone sit down and they play this really beautiful piece of classical music, and they play it by rote, but they're not, you know, and I always used to like, because I love Beethoven's Moonlight Sonata, and I always wanted to play that, but I didn't do as many piano lessons as I should have done. But because it's so evocative for me, but it's that moment of like when someone's playing something from their soul, from their heart, then it will touch you and move you.
Agreed.
And so when, you know, we know that, right? So when people go through the technical, like, so you can have a technical pianist, you can have a technical singer, they're just hitting the notes, just perfect, pitch perfect, but they're not feeling it. They're not embodying it.
Agreed.
So the thing about, you know, again, spiritual work, we can go down a rabbit hole with all of that.
Of course. And
ultimately it's just, you know, back to the people that, like you say, that aren't doing meditation, aren't talking about chakras and don't need to know the lingo. Like, this is just about being who you are.
I love
you know, this is just, you're just born. We're in the lifetime, and it's just about coming home to yourself. And it doesn't matter how you do that. You know, you can do it gardening, you can do it, you know, singing, you can do it chanting, you can just do it looking after your kids. You know, it's how do we really step into each moment, you know, in an authentic way. And it's just a practice. And it doesn't have to have, you know, it doesn't have to be tie-dye, up, down, inside out on the top of the Himalayas. It's just like, let's just do that. Let's just do this, like, you know, walking down the high street together, you know, or just on our own, right? So I'm very much about that. I'm very much about some of the basic things around coming home to an authentic life, coming home to ourselves. And for me, like I said, what I found is that when we do there's a tweak on the way that we embody through the heart. So, bringing awareness to the heart is so profound.
Right.
And I found in my work that it's actually exponential. So people come and see me and they've done, however many years of traditional therapy, and traditional therapy is amazing. But there may be, I always see in my inbox, I'm blocked. I'm still blocked. I can't get through this. I'm blocked.
Yeah.
They know everything, right? To know, we can know everything.
Yeah.
But to this, coming back to this idea of, is it in your cells? Are you just in the flow of this? And those are the questions. And it's not a big leap. It's a small tweak actually, and it's not a fandango. So so I always say, again, it's how do we need to read 20 books, or do we just need to embody one? Do we just need to embody a truth? There's the spiritual truths. There's nothing out there that you haven't heard, that hasn't been written about before. These spiritual truths have been around for thousands of years.
Totally.
And there's just a simplicity to them.
I love that.
Most of it just is, we are love. And you talk about self-love in your book too, and you also and you talk about two things that are really important when we think about love and how we are love and how we can embody that. We need to be able to say no. We need to, there's this idea of what is unconditional love. Unconditional love is loving yourself unconditionally, right? Warts and all. And if I love you, I see the shadow parts of you, and I love them too. And we also, it's that two truths can exist at the same time. We also need to have boundaries. So we need to. There's a line in the sand where I end and you begin. And it doesn't mean that I don't love you any less. It just means I love myself too.
Nice. Absolutely.
So that boundaries is really important. And I made a note about that, because you talk about having boundaries, right? You talk about that. How is that? How did you, what's your journey been to finding a way to say no gracefully?
Do you know it's funny, because I just had this moment as you were just speaking. Firstly, I can see why people come to you and why you emanate this beautiful energy that allows people to feel safe and to express to them how to find themselves, that it's always there.
Yeah.
And you just need a little course correction and it's there, which is beautiful. That's why I loved hearing you. I can just feel it. It's the same as you said with music. It's like when you feel it, right?
Yeah.
When it hits, it hits.
Yeah.
It's like, that's why I love on stage. It's like, okay, let's cut to the chase. Boom, the music hits, it hits.
Yeah.
Because, for example, I always play Show Me Love, Robin S.
Yeah.
And that song, it's a song talking about like heartbreaks and promises. I've had more than my share. She's talking about heartbreak. Like, is this real love? People embody the music and the sound of that as if it's just an anthemic, like, show me love. They actually hear it in a very different way.
Absolutely.
If you deep the lyric is saying like, this is like, I want you to show up and be real.
Yeah.
So there's an underbelly of the message, but the profound feeling that it gives is something completely different. That's why I just love, as you said, it's how you feel.
Well, it's like Kanye Staton, You've Got the Love, which is all about the universe, right?
Absolutely.
That's all about returning to God, or your version of God. You've got the love. It's like
totally. And
and these are anthemic tunes, and they hold this incredible frequency.
Hugely. And as you were saying about like boundaries, it's like, even before we even touched to that, I was getting. Have you seen the Wicked musical with?
Oh no, and I really need to.
Okay. Do you know the premise?
I know the premise.
The premise of it.
Yeah.
Because it felt to me that, and I only watched it like last week, and I was like, wow, I love The Wizard of Oz anyway, the original,
me too.
which is fantastic.
I've seen that 1,000 times.
Wow, and how the metaphysical underbelly of that is incredible. And I got this real profound sort of moment when I woke up, which was talking about like the whole Elphaba's journey, which really embodies what boundaries are about, and have been wanting to, on one side, be accepted, but at the same time speaking her truth, which I feel was always her soul calling, was like, to speak your truth. Like, you're trying to be accepted, you want it, but you're just like, you keep holding the line because your soul purpose really is in check. But what I found was really profound, outside of the beautiful Wizard of Oz and the journey of obviously Dorothy trying to get home, because you were mentioning getting back home.
Absolutely. And it's inside her all along.
All along. could have just, when those red shoes were there and you just had to just click them together and you could have gone home, but you needed to go through all those fragmented parts of you, you know, the Tin Man, the Lion, the Scarecrow, go through all of them, see the charlatan of the Wizard of Oz, pull back the curtain. Toto, which was always playing, in my opinion, her intuition, because it was always, there was the one that went behind the curtain, was the one that jumped out of the hot air balloon when she was about to fly off with the wizard. It was always like her intuition, and she kept following it.
Yeah.
So when she jumped out and then the wizard flew off, and next thing she was landed there, and it's like, okay, he's gone off into the distance and you're there, Glinda comes back and boom, here we are. Yeah. So I found that actually with Wicked though, look at the journey that Elphaba went through to actually have a home come crushing down. Now that would have been the dark night of the soul, would have been like the moment at which it all came crashing down, to then give the red shoes to someone else, the wisdom that bestowed upon those shoes that were left, for Dorothy then to go on the same path that was laid for her from before with Elphaba, to then experience that journey to find out for herself that she could have clicked them and gone home. Yeah. And I felt that how they, and there's no spoilers here because that's the opening part of Wicked, but it's just like, I was like, wow, Elphaba had to go through all of that just to lay the foundation to go home. And what happens? A home drops on her head. Right. Literally a home. And I was just like, wow. And it just hit me that when you were saying about coming home, it's like so many people are laying the foundations for you to then go on your own journey, which you have to go on, which is like, don't put your hand in the fire. But at the same time, well, I can tell you that, but you almost need to touch it, see what happens. Because the words, like you said, it doesn't really land into the embodied and into the heart. When it's in the head, it's like, okay, cool, you keep jump on the wall, keep jump up on the wall, put your hand near the fire, keep your hand near the fire, touch the fire. Okay, now we learn. We're in the game. Now, and it's unfortunate you hope that you can sort of give people enough of the guidance to not have to absolutely crash and burn. But as you said, it's in that moment that happens for somebody, that it's something is birthed, like a whole new lease of life happens. I guess in the tarot, it'd be like having the hangman and then the death card, and then at that point, it's like at the point of the chrysalis is kind of is there, and it's that mushy stage of the hangman, like what's going on? Boom. You turn into a butterfly, but you still can't fly just yet. You're just like, I don't even know how to do my wings. Like, there's a process in all of this.
Well, there's gold. It's your gold, isn't it?
Truly.
The hangman is a sort of moment of where we are. It's our gold. We're kind of like, we can tap into that. And we have choices in life too, right?
Totally.
And then we could sort of start again and you'd be the fool. So you'd be back to the fool. So back to that beginning of that journey and what that looks like. And, really strip back, which is what I kind of hear in your story, is just these moments where it's sort of stripped back. Before we go on, I do want to hear about your boundaries. I want to hear about boundaries, just because I think it's great for the listeners, like to understand what your no looks like. Like, why is it important to have an idea, like be able to say no when we, you're saying yes, but your body's saying no. Like, where, how did you grow that?
It took, do you know what? It's beautiful because I always sort of feel like the universe sets up the environment with all the different characters playing their roles to keep pressing you on because if you believe in reincarnation and your soul families, everyone's just playing their parts.
Absolutely.
It's like on the other side, it's like, okay, you play the one that's going to really break my heart, and you play the thing. It's like, but you really want me to do that this time? Yeah, because last time I didn't get the memo. Okay, go in this time. Really hit me, but do it early doors, because I want to just clear out half of this karma, so we don't have to keep doing the same thing around and circles. So when you've got that set up and you see it from that sort of perspective of this is a movie and you're co-directing the movie, which gives you a feeling of the empowerment within it. You're not just like, okay, I'm a cast member. No, you're co-directing it, but everyone's playing their roles and their characters, and no one's breaking their character just yet, because that's what a really good actor really is. Yeah. So I found that it was only when I went through the experience with Dark Night Soul, back going, questioning a lot of things, my people pleasing was part of this whole lack of boundaries, that I just had created a belief system from early, which I think was because everything had gone exponentially from 0 to 100 with my career. It felt from 1 minute walking up Southampton High Street and I was on the cusp of like this music thing happening. Rewind was getting a bit of a buzz to boom. Fill Me In went to #1, 7 Days #1, albums #1. Like I'm at Wembley Arena playing 3 nights. Like I couldn't walk that same high street anymore. Not that of a lack of wanting to, but just that as I tried to, I learned real quick that it was like so many people I knew from my own council estate would just be like, oh man, can I get a photo? Can I get, I was like, bro, like, what is school? Like, where's the photo, man? Like, yeah. Oh yeah, maybe I can just like stay over and like stay over. Bro, you live in the block of flats across the road. We're staying over. There's just a lot going on. But, and I realized that I felt that somehow the carpet was going to get pulled from underneath my feet, that this was all going to disappear. And I think that was the onset of having my people-pleasing tendencies kicked in. And also recognizing that I had no boundaries. Right. There was, I walked into everything's a yes. Because if I say no, maybe I'll find myself back that this dream is all the bubble's gone and I am back in Kansas. Right. And whoa. But I want to be in Munchkinland because it was like vibey over there. Yeah. Like, can I have that version of this where it was all colourful? I don't really. So I went through this journey of kind of finding that little no's and I get pushed back. And so I got all of the triggers were getting hit. Yeah, but if you don't do this, maybe it's going to get taken away. And if you don't do this thing, maybe. So it was kind of a self-worth issue at the same time. And I found myself going through this journey up until the point where I started to ask the deeper questions of, well, I'm doing the same things and expecting a different outcome, and something needs to change here. And it was only at the point at which I recognized that when it dropped in to the heart, which is everything you've been talking about, where it wasn't a heady thing. It was like, I know I should say no here, but if I say no, I know, like, it feels strange to me. It's like learning a skill that you're unfamiliar with, and you're just like, I feel like I'm acting. Mm-hmm. And you're like, oh, okay. So maybe it's not acting. Maybe it's actually act the part, become the part. As far as I'm going to send the CV in for Touch magazine, and I'm going to get the part. But actually, you always were that. But you just needed to kind of, and then all of a sudden you've embodied it, and everyone was like, oh yeah, well of course you always did. And it was a slow journey, but it got to the point where I just strengthened that, and I started to listen to my intuition when it was saying no, and just feel the uncomfortable feeling that the pushback. I was like, oh, you changed. Those ones is a classic, right? Or, like, okay, well, I mean, could all get taken, you know what I mean? If you don't do this one interview, if you don't do this one thing, it was all these things of like, if this one, which is a classic, talk about Wizard of Oz again, it's a classic Wizard of Oz move. You need to have this document to say that you have a heart. You need to have this diploma to say that you have a head. You need, like, all of the things that people are looking for, to have the intellect of the scarecrow, or to have the heart, or have the courage. You needed some authority that was outside of you to say that you're enough. Yeah. And I think that was the biggest thing, that I recognized that actually there's no authority outside of me. I was like, wow, it's me and the universe, me and God, like, and everyone's playing their part. I get it now. And it was like this profound, like, the movie guy in me was like, I see. Yeah. I got fooled. I forgot that I was co-directing this thing. And then you start to play with the game. Doesn't mean the test won't come, but you start to see, okay, I see the move now. And that was how it started. And I just really became more robust in being able to say no and handling it.
Basically handling your business.
Yeah.
Hi, it's Estelle here, and I'm so excited to share my new book with you, Manifest Your True Essence, Clear Your Blocks, Find Your Joy, Live Your Truth. This is more than just a book. It's an invitation to come home to your heart. Within its pages, you'll find the guidance to reconnect with your true essence. Through gentle meditations, heart-centered practices, and soulful wisdom, you'll learn how to release old patterns, embrace your divine spark, and manifest a life filled with love, purpose, and connection. You can pre-order Manifest Your True Essence on Amazon or wherever books are sold, and begin the sacred journey back to your heart today. Remember, you are love. You are light, and you are infinitely powerful. But talking about that and talking about a bit of reincarnation and this idea of how we come into the lifetime and sort of how you've arrived, and soul-wise, I'm sure you recognise yourself as being, all heart. So you've got that. You feel like you've come in as an empath. So you've come in with sort of, I would say, highly sensitive, and that's your energy, right? That's just who you are. And I see a lot of empaths, without boundaries. So it's, and it's kind of like this, it's really tough and it's really hard to say no as an empath, and because you're feeling and you want to make it right and kind of, and also you feel a lot.
Yeah.
Right? You feel a hell of a lot.
Totally.
But then when you don't have the resources, when we don't have the resources when we're young to really sort of process those feelings, that's when we hide things under the rug. And you talk about that in the book. But you're feeling so much, but you're having to kind of navigate the world and kind of get on with it. And then we put the mask on. So the mask is that I'm fine. So when people come, they say, "Oh, I'm fine." How you doing? "Oh, I'm fine." And I'm really nice.
Yeah, it's so true that.
And it's like, fine for me stands for effed up, insecure, neurotic, and emotional. So the minute someone says that, I'm like, this is how you're really feeling. And it is, right? Because we're not fine. We're many things, but we're and we don't have to be nice the whole time. And I really think that it's an important point. It's a tweak. I can be kind, and I can be, intentional, and I can be purposeful, and I can be graceful, and and I can feel into how I'm feeling, because then that means that how I interact with you, we're gonna go somewhere, in a relationship, and some sort of, our connection will deepen. So that people pleasing thing that so many people do, right, is really, if I don't say yes, will you still love me? Because that's what it all boils down to.
Yes.
Underneath it all.
So true.
Right? Will I still be palatable to you? Will it still be okay? And this sort of journey through the major arcana, which we've been doing through the tarot, can have a look. Have a look at that if you haven't looked at the major arcana of the tarot. It's really interesting. Carl Jung was really into the tarot, as we know. You probably know that. He was a massive fan of the tarot, big psychoanalyst. If you haven't heard of him, but I'm sure you have. And it's a really powerful way to think about our journey, the major arcana, actually, because we all go through these sort of moments of understanding, and we want to go through these moments of understanding. We want to be, finding that everything's within us, and we don't need the pieces of documentation to say that, you can say no now, or if you're not feeling this, you don't have to do it, or, you don't need to do this interview or meet that person, or can just listen, tune in, take a pause, take a moment, and listen to what is feeding you. What makes your heart sing? What feeds your soul?
That's so true. When it so lands as you say that, because it's the movie and the game is very much set up to challenge that, and that's almost like the beauty of it. That's what it's like when you have the real breakthrough of, this is a movie. There's a matrix, be it quite literally or metaphysically. Like, we watch the Matrix and you look at how it works. There's structures that are set up, and they're not necessarily there to put you in the corner. It's not like this is set up to be like, oh, you come here and you're just like, whoa, why did I sign up for this? But when you realize that you have signed up for it, I felt that was really profound. That there was, and this again goes. Some people may not believe that there's anything after this or reincarnation, but just when you feel you come in and there's purpose and you align with it, you then find that you navigate through what life is all about here in a much more beautiful way, and it becomes more heart-based, and it becomes of being of service, but at the same time not martyring yourself, and recognizing that self-love is the highest form of love, because then you can share that love with other people, and a loving no is really what we're all getting to. You can say no and it's loving. It's not, and if I have to repeat it, you may hear it a little bit more stern, but still from a loving place. It's not a triggered, like, I'm not really sure. It's a heady situation. Like you said, it's all back into the heart.
Yeah.
And once you realize that all of this is set up in that way, you start to see that I think we'd all, if there wasn't challenges and there wasn't things that trigger you, then what would we be doing here? But what is then you start to say, what is the purpose? And that's where I feel a lot of people, especially I use like the word man up, is like one of those phrases that's used so easily through men, like, of just man up, just fix up, man, come on, like let's step up.
Yeah.
And you're like, it's used out of context, because there's times where, okay, we need to fix up here. We need to organize ourselves. So there's times where you're playing a football match and it's like, come on, we need to get this together. Right?
Yeah.
We need that. We need the masculine energy here. We need to go. But the manning up in a time when someone needs to be in their heart space and they need to share their feelings and be sensitive and someone to hold space is a time when man up is just not really working. And when you see the male suicides kind of like going skyrocketing, you can see, and it's beautiful because I'm seeing it change. It's shaking up.
Yes.
It's through podcasts like this. It's through people having social media and being able to express their feelings. It's breaking that down.
Absolutely.
Because old school ways was like, whoa. When you look at lineages of things, sometimes to us, when you can talk to your parents or your grandparents and you can just see they're locked into a way of like, oh, you kids think it's all easy, and it's like, no, because there is ways to balance this. There's things we can learn from you. Don't get me wrong. But half of the things that you didn't express would have made life a lot easier for you. Like my grandma was of that era where I don't want to be a pain to anybody. I don't want to cause any issues. And I love my grandma. She raised me with my mum, as I talk about in the book.
In the book, yeah.
Yeah, but she'd suffered like so many traumatic things that she didn't even let anybody else know about. She'd had a breast removed that no one knew about. She had tumours that she'd been living with for years.
Wow.
And it was only until like the doctor actually said, because she was driving up until like her late 80s, coming to my house, and she was bumping into the tree with her car when she'd park it. And me and my mum would always be like, oh, grandma's has glasses. And we went to go check out her glasses if it was that. Got new glasses, and it still was happening. It was only when she went to the doctor and the doctor had pulled up her file and my mum was there and her brother was there too. And he said, well, yeah, Lily, you know, you've got tumours, right? You've had them for years. And then said about her breast being removed. He said it. And it was interesting how the will of that generation was so strong. And it was literally the straw that broke the camel's back, because at that point, and the way she responded was just like, well, you know, I've had a good innings. You know, it's like, I mean, good innings. Wow.
Yeah.
And off the back of that, it was like from 1 minute driving your car to 2 weeks next to just having home care. And then we lost her like 4 weeks, within 4 weeks. But it was that I would have loved my grandma to have said from a long time, yeah, you know, I'm going through it a little bit, and have that conversation. But she just wasn't of that. Hey, and I hope that people don't go through that situation now, that they talk and they share their feelings with other people in a safe space of some sorts. Yeah. Because otherwise you hold on to that and it just becomes the thing that you go to your grave with. You're like, wow. So
the thing is it's interesting you talking about that, because of course we also, the way that we manage our emotions or not, the full gamut of our emotions, that palette of emotions is learned. So, you know, we've got that cultural experience being, you know, what it feels like to be a man and to not have any safe space. Like you say, it's the greatest, you know, that suicide is the greatest killer of men under the age of 50. And also ways of being get handed down in families too, right? So her way, you know, you've just described something that feels like, you know, you kind of carrying that a little bit too, like that way of being in the world, which is it's fine. Mm-hmm. I'm just going to put, you know, like, so when that back happened, you know, your back's doing you know, maybe little twinges or something. And it's like, you know, it's fine. You know, I've got this. And the power like of your grandmother's resilience, you know, and the courage, which is amazing. And then also where it no longer serves us. And we do, so it's really useful sometimes to look at your family, some of your family members, and really lovingly and compassionately, especially as in this generation where we do have the opportunity to sit down and talk and find ways to really connect, you know, whether you're looking for a therapist or just, you know, being in conversation more.
Absolutely.
You know, trusting the conversation, pushing the boundaries of the friendships that you have. You know, like often I see people who feel like they, you know, I can't take that to any of my friends because, you know, and I always say, well, you're giving them the opportunity to grow. So when I bring you something that I feel deep shame around, it frees me, and it frees you actually to then bring something back to me. And that's what vulnerability is, isn't it? It's sort of deep, really deep, which is probably why you asked me the question at the beginning of this podcast, because it's a way for us to feel safe.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, I'm gonna spill my heart out, and will you spill yours too? Like where are you at? And that's just then deepened connection because it is safe.
Agreed. Do you find that? Have you read Brené Brown's The Power of Vulnerability?
Yeah.
The Brené Brown was quite one of those pivotal books, because I was listening to her audiobook when I was running in Miami prior to everything that happened, and I didn't know the impact of how listening to someone's voice, the vibration that was coming through, that when I ended up doing the audiobook for this, that it would be, I talk about listening to Brené Brown's Power of Vulnerability while I'm with my headphones on and getting into it and just being like, wow. And other people must have been thinking, wow, he must be listening like Biggie or some Tupac, the way he's moving on this. I was like hyped because I'm learning all these new things. And like, wow, it was really hitting my heart.
Yeah.
And I'm doing the audiobook and I'm talking about an audiobook, just having that moment where I was like, I really hope that this book has the same ability to touch one person's heart, that just gives them the ability to feel seen and to say, you know what, it's okay to open up. And I'm starting to now also see that alongside being the musician and being able to speak on a microphone and not have a melody behind me, which is a whole new experience, because doing it melodically through songs is one way of expressing yourself. But when you got to talk and articulate and try and find you realize that even when I started to do them, I was like, I got to pull out like the books and like, whoa, but what was Eckhart Tolle saying about that? And I was like, you know what? Put all that aside. The language of how I talk and the way that I come across, I hope brings people into this space of like, you know what? My man can go carnival and chop it up with a reggae sound system, doing a vibe with Rewind or 7 Days. But then if you want to go talk about the major arcana and tarot and metaphysics and the underpinnings of certain movies and some esoteric divination, whatever you want to, let's have, what is that new masculine energy about? Like, because there's no point kind of like, we're all looking for what it is. Well, let me embody it. Let's talk. Let me be the embodied without actually just having to try and ram it down people's throats. Just let me just be it.
Yeah.
So people be like, whoa, 1 minute he was chopping up about like 16 bars, but then now he's talking about, and I'm thinking, yeah, because that's my vehicle, as in someone else has a different vehicle for their way of bringing it through. So I think the more that I can open up and be vulnerable, and which the power is in, it allows people to say, you know what, my man said that. If he's saying it's okay, then it must be right that we can. And that's, if I can be one of the things I leave in this world outside of the music, then it would be a journey well done,
Why do you think people find it so hard to be vulnerable?
Do you know what? It's shame, the feeling of maybe guilt that they have within that they don't really want to open up and share parts of that's deep in the recesses of their psyche, which is on. It's okay. It's not like this has to be let's pour it out to the world. Process it in your own ways. But I just feel like for me, it's that people, it's trying to be too cool. It's trying to like keep up with the Joneses. It's like, you know what? If that person's not talking about it, then I'm not going to talk about it. Which is back to that old school man up thing. It's like, well, the guy down the road, he didn't talk about it, so I'm going to really talk about it. And I'm finding like, well, yes, you may get ridiculed, you may get mocked, you may get people being, he's soft, like it's wet, I don't understand, he's changed, and what he's talking about, he used to be cool. Wicked, love all them vibes. But let's go back to Alphaba. She came through. When she tried to lean in and be like part of she's like, this is not me. I've come here to break the mold, to be the black sheep in the family, to stop this lineage of my grandma doing what she was doing, and I love my grandma, and I love you, mum, and I love you, dad. But I got to do things a little bit differently here, because I'm seeing that there's something stirring in my soul, that this music thing hasn't been just to be like, just be the music man and worrying about like if you get a number one or how many records you sold. That's part of get the platform. But the real work starts when you've got the platform. Now, I ain't going to be on a soapbox in the middle of High Square, the High Park doing a madness. But I'll do it in ways that it will, again, it's like being back in the movies. Do it in do it in the ways that it connects.
So I love that. And I have 3 quick fire questions for you. And then I want to talk about the music. So
cool.
Quick fire question number 1, talking about imposter syndrome. What would you say to people who feel like they're imposters?
So there's something in that act the part, become the part. So I feel that.
So fake it to make it.
Fake it till you make it, but then there's a certain point at which you've got to just recognize that you have made it. There's that integration part where you can't keep carrying on the fake it till you make it because you actually have made it now. And I think that's the problem, is like a belief. You've taken on a belief of, I'm going to fake it till I make it. You wanted to, I don't know, let's do the example you said, you wanted to write for Touch and you got the roots, like you think, wow, big group, got to do the thing here. Well, you could keep on telling yourself, well, someone's going to pull the rug from underneath me. But imposter syndrome's kicking in now. So now you've gone from fake it till you make it. You've made it. Now I'm imposter syndrome. Now I got to keep on pretending like I'm not. To the point where you integrate it and you realize that it's actually not. It's not. It doesn't have to be looked at if you're very sensitive to. I don't want to be like, it's an ego thing. Like, I don't want to be like. Okay, if you want to buy into that, let's just say that it's okay to be whole. You're a whole person now, and you've that's what you are. And it's okay to own it. Like Film Me in 7 days and Walking Away and Born to Do It. It did I can't pretend like I didn't pull back the arrow and the arrow flew, and I don't want to grab the arrow and pull it back and be like, no, but I want to be the local boy from Southampton. No, the thing's gone, my man. You wanted it, so don't try and now rein it back. And that was my problem. I was trying to pull back the arrow that I'd already fired to be like, no, but I wasn't want to live in the council flat with my mum and have the car down there. Bro, we're not there now. Let's just be honest. We're not here. As much as you'd love to, you're not that. And you knew that when you let this thing off, that you wanted to see the world. So go now, enjoy the world. And I think that's the dichotomy of the whole thing.
So there's that moment where you just it's give yourself permission to have arrived.
Absolutely.
Sooner rather than later. When you've put all that work in and you've been visualizing and manifesting and it happens, just allow it.
Yes.
So that's a great wisdom. What about if you're a young person and you are being bullied in this moment?
Wow. Bullying is I talk about bullying in many different facets in the book too.
Yeah.
Do you know what? It comes back to being able to share how you're feeling with someone that you have a safe space with, whoever that may be. If it's a friend, it may be a stranger of some sorts, because you may feel like it's a little bit away from the close proximity of either someone not quite getting it, or feeling that, especially if bullying is at school, if we go to that age group, that if you tell a teacher and the teacher pulls up the person who's bullying you, are they going to be there for you when it's outside the school gates? Are they going to be there on the bus? Are they going to be there around your home? Because this thing is not just like contained sometimes in the school. But from what I've learned from my experience is that go there, go into the place of, I'm gonna out this person. And it's not outing from you're just going to tell your truth. But at the same time, try and find spaces that you feel that will hold space and help you through it and navigate it, because it's very easy to say, tell the teacher and they'll pull them up and it'll be done. Well, like I said, it's a psychological thing. It's the look from across the room. It's throwing something at you and just let you know that, you know what, okay, cool. Wait till we're outside the school gates. And that's why I wrote a song called Johnny, which talks about that. And because I had a stint of it, a season of that at school. But it showed me, again, and I used it as now experience as wisdom, that I look back and say, wow, I experienced that so I could know what it feels like. So I'm not just like having some hypothesizing of what bullying is like. No, I know how it feels. And it's a strange one, especially when it's physical as well. Do you know what I mean? It's like all of your techniques and tools aren't really working here when someone's like giving you one jab in your back and you're just like, whoa. So it's one of those things that to share. And I just have a true belief that it will find if it's getting so intense that you have to remove yourself from the situation, then remove yourself from it, because no one's going through the whole of their school life to continue that every day, waking up feeling that way. And that's not for me a cop out. That's actually recognizing that, you know what, this is not changing anytime soon. Either you express yourself and nothing's happened and you're like, I got to remove myself from this. It's one or the other, because I feel for anyone who's going through that. And that's truly feels like a cycle that you must feel when you're having people come to you and you're speaking to them, that this is part of almost the process in some way. Sometimes you might get it harder than the most, but there's a cycle of go through that.
Yeah.
And then we have to go peel back the onion and get down to the core to find that actually, wow, I've let it go. I was able to forgive the person who did that thing to me because I'm the one carrying it, even though that's a hard one to pill to swallow for a while. You're like, what? Forgive that person? No. I want to burn them to the ground. But no. Forgive. Let it go, because it's only holding you back. And then once you get that release, you level up, and then it becomes wisdom, and then it becomes experience, and then you can pass that on, which is Alphabet in Wicked. It's like you had to do all that for the next person to then hopefully not have to go through the same things in the same ways. And I think we're getting there slowly but surely, right?
Well, I love the fact that you spoke about forgiveness, and I could talk to you about that for another 15 minutes. But
I know I'm here.
I love that, because it's so important. I mean, that is therein, that's a kind of part of the process. I talk about it in the True Essence process in my book. But when we get to forgiveness and what that really feels like and looks like, and the power of forgiveness, because you only need to sort of turn your attention to forgiveness. And I want to say it's for like 10 minutes a day, and it actually activates a shift in your consciousness. And there's been studies around that in the States. It's so powerful as a tool, like gratefulness here. There's gratitude. These things do work. They change our frequency. They change our vibe. And we could talk about that for quite a while. But I do want to talk about the fact that you're on tour.
I appreciate you. I know, I love you, but you was about to hit forgiveness, because that's a key one. No, we definitely hit the tour one. They're going to love the tour.
Let's do the tour because we want to talk about
because trust me, it's funny, because I come on it and I'm when I meet people and I sometimes get into interviews and there's a part of like there's something coming up, and it might be a single, might be an album, and my team are like, bro, like, what part did you not want to drop about the I'm like, but I'm just in the vibe, yeah? The universe is talking through me. I don't know. We're talking about forgiveness. People are they're leaning in. They're like, cool with the tour. Tell me in 2 seconds. But forgiveness, that one, probably talking about the power of vulnerability, power of gratitude, but forgiveness is I feel you with that. I just want to just land that one, because I feel you. Forgiveness is tricky, that one, because everything someone did to you, hurt you, the pain, the resentment, and the moment can come where you're just like, all of a sudden, and this is quite interesting, that you can go from the victim to being on a higher ground and be the perpetrator quite quickly. You can get that moment where you're like, now who's... And at that moment, if that moment comes, can you forgive enough and be graceful to be like, I needed just to release this from my body.
Yeah.
And you take your energy, I had to release your energy that was just lodged in me for so long. And now it's like, you can own that. And I'll trust in the universe for it to play out as it needed to play out. And if we go back and layer back of the onion and we say this is all a movie, you played your character so well. You triggered me to the point where I had to shake up. I had to have boundaries. I had to stop the imposter syndrome. You were my greatest teacher. I could not have told you that at the time. And this goes like it can go in so many ways, because people can get hurt, they can be abused, they can be, and it's like, how do you explain that away? But if you can find forgiveness in there's some seed of such a beautiful breakthrough that you can share that. Someone who's lost a child, and then they're able to actually then set up an organization where they can talk to other mothers and fathers about like losing children, and they become a safe space. You say through that child, that loss, you're being of service for the greater good, and you never would have known that was it. It wouldn't take away the pain, but the ability to be able to transfer that into something that's so beautiful and so powerful is like, wow. You start to see that there's something in all of this, but it's hard. This game is no joke. That's the thing. But no, it's a game. No, it's a game. And I know that can be heady as well, right? In the head, it can be like, yeah, that's a great story. But when someone punches you in the face, it hurts, right? Yeah, I feel you.
Yeah.
I feel you. All of the tools. What's the tool when you get it in the face? I get you. But let's go back into the heart. Let's power the pause. Let's calm it down. And then over to you. But forgiveness. Land it. Finish it off, and then we'll do tours and vibes.
Well, forgiveness is the key. You know, it's a sort of supercharged way in. You know, to really soften all of those things that are in the shadow. So soften the shame, soften all of the kind of the feelings, these ideas that we have about self. Forgiveness is the fire. It warms we can warm our hands at that fire and soften and warm, you know, because our shadow, which is where we hold all of the stuff, you know, when you were talking about masking at the beginning of the book, and you know, you were sort of masking with I'm fine, I'm and I'm kind.
Yeah.
Or I'm fine and I'm nice.
Nice.
That's
nice.
it.
Nice.
Let's keep it to nice.
Yes,
because kind
is
is a real thing.
Yeah.
Nice is a different thing, right?
Yeah.
So it's this idea of, you know, what it means to bring these parts of ourselves into the warmth of our heart. And forgiveness is like it's so powerful.
Mm-hmm.
It really is. And I always say to people, because again, it's that thing of how can I really forgive? Forgiving doesn't mean that you condone a behavior.
Yes.
It just means that you let it go, right? So it's like that behavior. It's not sort of forgiving the behavior. It's like the behavior is still dysfunctional, toxic, not okay.
Yes.
But you just let it go. You're just like, but I forgive you for, you know, for behaving in that way.
Yes.
But I don't forgive the behavior. You know, we don't have to condone. We don't have to condone the behavior in order to get over it.
Agreed.
We don't have to, it doesn't suddenly have to be, you know, okay with us. It's like bad behavior is bad behavior.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't want that bad behavior to inform the rest of my life. I don't want it doesn't have to inform my joy.
I agree with you.
That person, I'm not having that person informing like my precious time on the planet. We come back to this idea of what is every day is so precious. Why am I holding that person in my energy field?
That's that.
This person's just raining on my parade, right? Like, forget that.
Yeah. Constantly just like interjecting in everything
just
that
in
you're
the
doing.
background, just that kind of hum in the background of these people and the resentments around these people and what they've said and how they've, you know, it's like enough.
Do you know what? As you say that, that's why it was, and I wish you all the best with like your book. I think it's going to touch so many people's hearts, just the presence and the way that you are. Genuinely, like as you know, I'm so empathic, and just as you are, and it's all energy. So you can get a read on someone within the first few minutes of them before you even get into their whole story and unpack them. Right? Is that I recognise that it was so cathartic writing a book, and I don't know if you felt the same way with yours. That by releasing, forgiving, letting go, surrendering, it allowed me to free up so much space that was being held by so many different things. Like, because there's only a certain amount in the container, right? And it just freed up all this space. And it allowed me to then sort of see the world took off the rose-tinted glasses and be able to see the world much more clearly. And I feel like it's one of the most beautiful things when you can be neutral about situations that were so triggering and so charged, because now I can talk about things. I can talk about the book and it doesn't charge me. We can go into anything and everything. We can go into anything you want to talk about. Like genuinely, I'm just like, let's go. Because before I would feel like, okay, let me go into media trained and stay on the music. Don't go away from the thing. Stay in your lane. Don't. Now let's be a whole human being, as we were talking about before. And also just to feel that you're not emotionally charged to those things, because I felt that was what there was a charge going on, the charge as I was writing the book. But when I let it out, I'm like, it was like that talking about bullying and talking to somebody. The world knows the story now. Yeah. My story's out. Yeah. It was a bit like Eminem and 8 Mile. Right. It's like, you know all the things about me, my man. So what is it you're going to tell me about myself? Yeah. I'll everything you're going to hit me with. Here it is. Exactly. Because the power and the vulnerability right there and right then. So I appreciate you. You've got good energy. You've got good vibes. So have you. I mean, from the vibesman himself. That's got to be good. It's all about vibes. You know it's got to be good. But listen, let's talk about the music. Also, you're on tour now. So UK with the Commitment tour, which talking about titles, you know, I love that. It's like Commitment. They're all like. They all hit, right? They all hit, yeah. I'm just like... Follow my intuition. Time is now. Story goes. Yeah, now totally. Commitment. We're in that phase. Love it. You know what? It's funny because even the first single from the new album that's coming out later this year was called In Your Hands. And I loved the video for that. Thank you. Loved it. I appreciate it. So cool. The whole sentiment of, you know, seeing your inner child and... Beautiful. And And I felt that way when I was in the video, and I had little Ethan who was playing me. And
you could feel that.
I was like, oh my God, this is like, and he's telling me his dreams. He's like, I want to be an actor and I want to do this. And I'm like, wow. And I'm looking at him for a lot of the answers too, because I was like, well, what's the vibe? He said, yeah, I'm just vibing. I'm just going with the flow and just being present, being in the moment. I'm just like, bro, it's like, I feel like I'm having this weird juxtaposition of speaking to someone who's got profound wisdom, but actually does know. That's the funny thing. Children do know, but you only find like years later on, you're like, wow, it's a profound thing you just said then. And so it was this beautiful moment. And then from in your hands of knowing that there was having faith, and faith is one of those things that like, once you dial in, whatever that may be, it really does guide you. And it's like the wind, and it blows you from where you need to, just take a leap of faith, when they say, right? It's the fall card again, that you're going to fall off the edge of the, no, you're going to be all right. Like, just take a leap of faith. To lean into SOS, the latest single, that feels like a transitioning into another part where I'm like, of commitment, of like, SOS, like, universe, you hear me now. I'm doing the work. You know I'm doing the work. Not even that I need to shout it from the rooftops. You know, behind the scenes. This is where Sonia, our close friend, Sonia Choquette,
who
comes
we love,
into this.
Sonia Choquette. You're listening to this, and if you haven't heard of Sonia Choquette, check out her books. They're amazing.
Oh yeah, Trust Your Vibes.
Trust Your Vibes, and she's a real
one.
Gem. She's a real one.
She's a real one. She's been such a blessing in my life, a blessing in both of our lives. Like she just embodies what she stands for, and she won't allow you to spiritually bypass.
No spiritual bypassing, and kind.
Very kind. And says it how it is. And that was another audio book from back in the day, that when I heard Trust Your Vibes, I was like, I heard her seminars, that she had these little excerpts of seminars in that audio book, and I was like, I know you. I don't know why or how, but I know you. Everything you're saying is resonating, and I can hear in the vibration, the frequency of the voice, that is true. And that's the beautiful thing with music. It's like, you know when it's true. You know when someone delivered that vocal right, or someone was technically good, but the person who actually landed the performance right. And it may not have been technically on point, but it hit you in a different way. So I feel like SOS has now become that song, which is like harps back to a moment in Miami where I had my red Ferrari breaking down outside of a restaurant. And I was on a first date, and it just all went wrong in a multitude of ways, which is the start of the video for SOS. But what ended up happening was that I had a epiphany in that moment, which changed the trajectory of my whole life in Miami, is that I used to play a game called Outrun in Southampton, which was an arcade game that used to put pound coins in, and it was like a mock kind of Ferrari car, and you had your arm around this woman, and you're driving through the streets of Miami, and it's just like, wow. And I used to spend so much money on this game. I'm in the car. I come out of the restaurant. It's all gone wrong. The date I'm in, had to go with friends to go to, I said, go to the club. Like, I'll see you later on. Like, the car's broken down. I call up the guy. I'm like, yo, so who's the guy? I call up the car dealership. I said, look, the car's broken down. Is there any way you can send me a tow truck to pick me up? He said, yeah, I'll get a tow truck. It's going to take about an hour and a half, 2 hours. I was like, well, I'm not going anywhere. So I'm in the car sweating. It's hot. Estelle, it is hot, yeah. Like, I'm talking like tin can hot, like, wow.
It's Miami.
Miami hot.
In the summer.
So hot. Everyone's piling out of the restaurant. I'm seeing everyone coming out. The guy says, listen, maybe it's the ignition. Turn the car, the ignition on 10 times. Open the door 10 times. It might help you, like, the ignition might reset. I'm like, okay, cool. So then all of a sudden, like, I'm doing like opening the door 10 times, yeah, and doing the ignition, the lights are flashing on and off, like looking like a complete joker, thinking, you know what, Ashton Kutcher's going to come and do a MTV Punk thing on the side, right? So I'm like waiting for him to come. I could feel it as I did the ignition thing. I was like, this is mad. And everyone's looking at me like, oh yeah, you're the guy with the Ferrari, right? Outside the restaurant, want to be that guy, yeah? Right. I was like, okay, cool. Didn't work. Call him back up. I said, bro, it's not working. Okay, cool. Tow truck's coming. Hour and a half, 2 hours. No one's coming. I call back, say nothing's here. He said, it's still stuck on the toll bridge. It's going to be another hour and a half. I'm stuck in the car. I'm like, okay. So I get out. Everyone comes out of the restaurant. The bar backs, the chefs, the cleaners, everyone is finished now. The whole thing's done. I call my date and said, look, I'm going to make it tonight. It's like, it's done. So it's like, I'm just sitting in the car, like, hot. I get outside because it's so hot. It starts to rain. Pouring down with rain. And I'm like, okay, cool. So then I get back in the car, pouring with rain, tin can business going inside the thing, hot. And I had this moment where I looked at the badge of the Ferrari steering wheel. And I had the most craziest out-of-body experience. Genuinely, like, whenever I tell a story, I just feel like, did that really happen? But
no, I want to hear this.
Yeah, I felt like I'd shifted from being in the Ferrari back to Quasar in Southampton, sitting in Outrun, playing the arcade machine. To, literally, I could viscerally see the screen, to jumping back in my car. And I was like, whoa, what just happened there? And then it happened twice. And then I came back the second time. I just got so emotional that I just started to cry. And I didn't know what I was crying for. And I was still, this profound thing had happened. And then I started looking at the stitching of the car, and I started looking at the speedometer and the dial, and looking at the steering wheel and the Ferrari. And I was just like, I had this moment of gratitude that just flooded through my whole system, of that the kid that dreamed of seeing a Ferrari, let alone owning one in Miami, who put all these pound coins in this machine, was now sitting outside of a restaurant, having had a lovely meal, sitting in this dream car. And then I just had this moment of like, oh my God, I actually live in Miami.
Yeah.
I have an apartment that's over. I had this moment of like, wow, the kid who got everything, but yet for a moment, I'd missed it all, and it was stressing out about getting picked up and the date and my tow truck and the whole thing. And I was like, whoa. And I just was like, oh my God, like life is just amazing. I started smiling with the sweat that was coming down my face. I started smiling when the tow truck guy came and I jumped in the thing. He said, man, you're happy about the thing? I said, yeah, just put the car up and vibes. He's like, bro, like usually people are a bit like, no, just put it on, let's go. Came out smiling like I was Garfield.
I love that.
And I end up going home thinking, you know what? What a profound moment that you can have everything and not realize that you're actually like the kid who got the golden ticket. And when Willy Wonka says at the end, what do they say when a man who gets everything, like when he finally gets there, he said that you win everything in the world. When you finally realize that you have everything, you're going to be fine. So I just was like, at that point, it was my moment. And then I left Miami. So it was a trajectory point for me. I learned that was a moment that I had everything on paper, but I needed to come home. So it was a great move. So
it's kind of like, it was why you were there all along. Just to have that awakening.
Have that moment. Go back to Southampton and Quasar.
Exactly.
Vibes. Wow.
Full vibes. Full vibes. Craig, you have got to finish this podcast.
That's crazy, yeah? It's funny when you get in conversation, we can just vibe. You can tell I'm a tourist and we talk, yeah?
We love a chat. I love a chat. And it's been such an honor to have you on the Love Purpose Connection podcast today, and to join us, and and to hear about where you're at, and also the tours in full flow. So anyone who wants to get tickets, you're doing the whole of UK. Yeah, we're in the midst of it now. Whole lot of dates going up and down, which you can go to my website, craigdavid.com, and all the different places to find it. But yeah, it's been so good already. The shows are going great. But most importantly, can I just say thank you so much for having me on your podcast, because not only had I heard so many beautiful things about you, but your energy and the way you hold yourself is more profound than I could have thought. And it's touching people's hearts. And I just appreciate to be able to come on here and have these kind of conversations. It's a beautiful thing, Craig.
It truly is, because you're changing people's lives in a lot of ways. And I just feel like that's really being of service, right? So thank you. I appreciate you.
Well, I appreciate you co-creating this energy.
Pleasure.
Because we want that we're sending that out into the universe.
Absolutely.
For whoever's meant to hear it and needs to hear it. And, we're here with you, companioning you through all of these things. And as we finish, I always ask people those words, love, purpose, connection. I mean, we've talked a lot about all of them. What do they mean to you, just in a nutshell?
I mean, I just say that's it, right? That's it. That's it. If you put all those together, you're going to feel all that sunshine beaming off the outside of you. You're going to feel in your zone. You're going to feel it. You'll feel it. Feel it. Everything it says there is it. You'll feel the magic when you connect the Holy Trinity right there. I'm writing that down. I like that, the Holy Trinity. Yeah, you got the whole thing good on it. Yeah, so that's it today. My pleasure. Thank you so much. Estelle, thank you. Thank you so much for listening to Love, Purpose, Connection with me, Estelle Bingham. If you enjoyed this episode, please like and subscribe wherever you listen to your podcasts. I'd really appreciate that. And if you really liked it,
then leave me a review so I can keep doing what I love, healing one heart at a time. You can also follow me, Estelle.Bingham, on Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest releases. If you feel in need of some extra guidance, then my book, Manifest Your True Essence, could be helpful. You can find it online or in any major bookshop. In the meantime, thanks again for listening, thanks again for watching, and I will join you on the next episode of the Love Purpose Connection podcast.